Hello, my name is Faz from Nintendo Players UK, and I have been given the honor to meet and sit down and talk with three of the four champions from Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I'm here with Sean Chiplock, the voice of Revali, the Decatry, and Teba, Amelia Gotham, the voice of Mipha, and Joe Hernandez, the voice of Daruk and Yunobo. How are you guys today?
Great.
Yeah, doing really good.
I'm glad the weekend is here. It's been a long week of recording auditions and doing work stuff, and caught up right in time to get to relax. So rest and recuperate.
Yay! So just a quick thing, how's your year been so far?
Joe, you had that movie thing that just came out recently, right?
Yeah, last year was such a great year for me. I mean, as far as voiceover is concerned, Breath of the Wild came out. And then I had an animated film that I had recorded a couple years ago, and it finally saw the light of day. It's called Deep, and it's got some pretty big name talent. I mean, Bob Bergen's in it, Dave Fennoy, Jess Harnell's in it. It's a really, really cute film for the kiddies, so you're gonna love it.
That's the one where you're the singing crab, right?
Yeah. And it was kind of a surreal thing to go into a movie theater and go watch a film that I had worked on. It's pretty crazy. And it's now on Netflix, so you can go check it out if you have any little ones of your own.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
What about you, Amelia?
This has been a great year for me. I've mostly been concentrating on my modeling career for the last 6 months. So I've been doing a lot of work for, actually as a representative for Dodge at auto shows. So they've been flying me around the country this last year. Different cities that I've never seen before. So it's nice to see the country a little bit. And just continuing to do auditions and, stay open for opportunities.
Very cool.
Well, thank you very much for taking time out to be a part of this little project of mine. How often do you guys get to interact with each other, and how often do you guys even get to meet up in real life? Have you ever met up in real life?
Yeah, to speak honestly, with the exception of Western animation, also called prelay, which typically will record with the entire group of people in the room, when it comes to video games and anime, it is exceptionally common for everyone to have their own independent session time, their own studio time. So, for example, there were times when Joe and I might cross paths, when one person was coming out of their recording session and I was the next one to go in after him. But outside of that, we don't really get a lot of opportunity to interact outside of social media. In fact, almost all of my interactions face-to-face with Joe are from when I was one of his work colleagues, when we used to work together at the same company.
Yeah,
well, we did have that Zelda party.
Yeah, I haven't seen you, Amelia, since I think Halloween, right? There was the Halloween party.
Right. Yeah, we hang out sometimes. We've had a couple of get-togethers.
Yeah, and even after the game came out, there was a nice little Breath of the Wild cast party that we had, and I think pretty much everybody was there, with exception for Elizabeth, who's all the way over in Austin, Texas. But that was kind of the first time that everybody was able to kind of get together.
Okay. So wait, do you mean by just the English branch, or do you mean by all of them, including the other?
Oh God, I mean, if you guys have interacted with any of the foreign dub actors for the characters, please let me know. But
I'm just speaking for the American team. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. I just thought I'd get that clarified. With that being said, for you guys have what sounds like drastically different backgrounds. Where did voice acting start for each of you?
Amelia, do you want to take?
Joe. Yeah.
We'll go with Amelia first.
Okay. Well, I trained in Fitzmaurice voice work and various other techniques during my conservatory time for acting, and I've always been open to opportunities, and I actually met a director, and he said that I had a good voice and I should start trying to get into it. So I was actively pursuing other opportunities as well, but voiceover kind of presented itself to me. And when I was given the audition for Breath of the Wild, you know, I had no idea how big of a game it actually was. But I was very grateful for the opportunity, and, you know, so it's been a part of my life for a few years now, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, to add on to that, Amelia, you're also someone who despite, from what you said, it sounded like you were still relatively new to it or getting used to it, but you've grown so quickly in a time. When I heard your performance in the DLC update for Breath of the Wild, the Ballad of the Champions, or Champions Ballad, you had so clicked with the character that you were honestly one of the best performances out of the returning champions who showed up. You had nailed her soft, heartwarming enthusiasm and her support for Link. You were amazing.
I think I think that kind of happened for all of us, though. I mean, where, you know, you spent this time with this character, and then, you know, you spend a little bit of time away from it, and then you revisit it, and it was, for me, it was like riding a bicycle, and it was great because, you know, I don't know how you guys feel, but, you know, going over the original material, it's like, oh gosh, I wish I could do this a little bit differently, or I wish I could do, you know, change this up a little bit. And now, you know, revisiting this character, I think almost a full year later, or however long it took for them to work on the DLC, it was great. I mean, and it was for me, it felt very seamless. It was just great being able to revisit this character, and especially the way that it was written too. I mean, I felt like so much more of Daruk's character was much more fleshed out this time around than in the main game. And I don't know how you guys feel, but you know,
I feel like I was.
Go ahead, Amelia.
Oh, I just feel like, you know, the first time around you're not given a lot of information. I think that's to protect, you know, the game and make sure that it's under wraps until it's released. So the second time around, I felt like I really understood the character a lot more.
That's true. I think it was probably because I didn't look over the details all that well, or maybe it just didn't cross my mind, but I actually didn't realize that Revali wasn't actually alive until I think we were close to being done. Like, then it hit me like, oh, this is like, oh, now I get it. But, so obviously I'm glad it didn't impact the performance, but I felt bad because, like, if only I'd realized that sooner, I might have been able to make it even better, you know?
Yeah. I'm surprised. Amelia, you said that you did Fitzmaurice work?
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, when I was at Cal State Fullerton, I was training in the theater. We did a lot of voice and movement work, and one of my teachers, she had done a lot of Fitzmaurice work, so we kind of learned a lot of breath control, a lot of resonance, projection, all of those things. One of the things they don't really tell you that much when you're working on the stage is there's quite a bit of like yoga, Pilates, breath work involved. Just because you have to think of it in perspective of, if you're performing in a theater, you know, say one that fits 500 people, you need to be able to project loud enough so that they can hear you clearly, even in the back rows. Right. So it's great that you have that background, and it's something I didn't know about. But as far as my background goes, I'm a stage guy. I'm a stage actor, and that was my training kind of going into it. And then during college, I went out for this audition over at Disneyland to do character voices in the park. And I've been doing it now for 13, 14 years now, and it's been really good to me. You know, I love what I do. It's great. And that was sort of my gateway into voiceover. It's like, hey, wait a second, I can do this. Because if you talk to anybody that does theater out here in California, it's just not enough to make a living off of, unfortunately. So it's like, hey, wait a second, maybe I can use my theater degree in another capacity. And, you know, I'm still acting, I'm still doing all that stuff. I'm just not on stage.
Yeah, there was definitely a little bit of a learning curve for me to, you know, because projection in theater is definitely important, but then when you're in front of the mic, you got to realize it's picking up everything. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a learning curve to that, but, you
know. Sean, where did you begin?
Oh man, mine's a little bit more selfish because, so the exact time changes on this every time, but back in high school, there was a lot that I was decent at, but not really anything that spoke to me in terms of finding a career right around the time when everyone was pressuring you to have your major decided before you were a freshman in college because it's going to determine the course of your life. So, like, math was my friend until pre-calc, and then we stopped texting each other. Science was my friend until it started involving math, and then I was like, hey, we're not together anymore, math, leave me alone. Language arts was the same way, so there wasn't really anything that really spoke to me. And then what did speak to me at the time was Neopets, and I spent a lot of time on Neopets. And one particular evening, when Adult Swim was doing their Toonami block for the night, they were constantly advertising their website. And I said, all right, fine, I'll check it out, Adult Swim. This better be worth it. And you remember like the old MTV behind the music video videos where they would show like a music video, but little factoid bubbles would pop up with like extra tidbits and facts about the artist or the production company?
Yeah.
So it was like that. It had a clip from an upcoming episode of Trinity Blood, and you could click these little extra factoid bubbles that would take you to extra clips and stuff like that. And one of them was a behind the scenes showing Troy Baker. I know it's amazing when you think of what he does now. Troy Baker in the studio recording for Abel Night Road, and I'm watching this guy talk, like literally it's showing him in the booth, talk at the same time that his character is talking. And that's when it actually clicked in my head that, oh, that's a thing. People talk, and the characters is them, and oh my god! And that's the first time that something like in my head, like a light bulb went off, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I want to be involved with it. And I saw it as a way for me to channel my natural enthusiasm and my energy into something that I could actually make into a career. And I don't want this answer to drag on, so I'm going to speed it up from here, but Too Long Didn't Read. My enthusiasm led to my then or now mentor finding me and picking me up, and he taught me a lot of the techniques that he used to book the work that he does. And just as a result of a lot of self-practice using online forums and my mentor training me and occasionally taking classes and just taking things in college that mixed well with this type of career, I've been learning. It's been a constant process of learning, and I'm glad to say and see that it seems like I've been going the right way about it to find success.
Yay! I'm glad for all of you, seriously. But honestly, I actually found all of your performances fun to listen to, and it kind of goes on to my one of the first things about Zelda, really, because you kind of answered some of the others already. The Legend of Zelda pretty much was the first game released on the Switch. Did you feel any pressure on this title? I mean, let's be honest. Like the first time we get to hear anyone's voices, especially the English ones, was the trailers, and that was probably late last year. Sorry, not late last year, late year before.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you?
I can't say that there was a lot of pressure because that we were a launch title. I would say there was more pressure because we were the first Zelda game with voice acting. I feel like that was where the pressure probably came from.
And not just the first canon game with voice acting, but that obviously wasn't going to stop people from comparing it to the only other known Zelda game with voice acting for very obvious reasons. So,
what about you, Amelia?
Was there pressure?
Yes.
You know, to be honest with you, I'm not a gamer, so I didn't understand exactly how big the game was when I originally was involved in it. So, you know, I approached it like I do every other character, with as much giving it my all, you know, and making sure that I did the best that I possibly could do at the time. But I don't really think that I felt pressure.
What's it like now in retrospect for you? Because it's like you said that you weren't sure on how big the game was. Because with Joe and Sean, they know more about the Zelda series in the past in that sense with that pressure. But it seems more like it was less the case for you.
Yes.
So what was that like in retrospect? What's it like now, knowing what you know?
I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. You know, I believe that we all gave our best performances that we could, and we did a great job. And I mean, I'm thrilled to be part of the series and to be able to represent Mipha in the way that I did.
Yeah, I would even add on and say that whatever pressure that like we probably felt was probably pressure that we were putting on ourselves. And it was nothing that was ever applied to us by, you know, anybody on the recording team and nobody on Nintendo. This was just pressure that we were putting probably more on ourselves.
It was definitely self-applied, because as a fan of the series and someone who was knowledgeable of what it meant to so many people, and of course the history of the series, it was self-applied, because I was like, this is going to be monumental. It's going to be a first Zelda experience for an entirely new generation at some point, and I want it to be the best experience it can be. So even though no one was putting that expectation on me, I was putting it on myself, because like Miyamoto said, you know, if a delayed game is eventually good, a bad game is bad forever. In the same way, a bad performance is going to be bad forever, and I did not want to do that to anyone who wanted to enjoy this game. I wanted it to be the best it could possibly be.
Well, that kind of leads me neatly to my next question. Did you face any challenges with your particular characters?
Oh, man. You guys go first.
Well, I could tell you this. I didn't realize that we were going to be dubbing.
What?
I did. Well, like,
Yeah.
when, like, because the game had already, like, been animated, you know, in Japanese and all that. So this was, in certain respects, a dub. And so, you know, for those of you that don't know, it's, you know, kind of matching the voiceover and the lines and your delivery to the lip flaps.
Which are Japanese.
Yes. And it's very technically demanding. And so, you know, for me going in day one, I kind of had my mindset on one thing, and then it's like, oh, wait a second, now we have to add this on there too. So that was just a challenge that I wasn't entirely expecting.
Yeah. In terms of characters, oh wait, did you have more to say, Joe?
No, I mean, that was just a big challenge for me.
Yeah. Amelia, did you want to go next, or is it okay if I go?
Go ahead.
For me, the challenge wasn't just in the actual dubbing process itself, it was the character, because when I was cast as Revali, I was over the moon. I was, oh my god, I love this character so much. I legitimately don't think there's anyone who's attached to him as much as I am. I can hear exactly how he sounds in my head. And the problem was, I had a good idea on how he would sound, but it wasn't completely in line with what Nintendo envisioned for the character, at least for his English voice. So Revali was the character that I thought I would have the easiest time out of all three in terms of finding the place for his voice. And instead, he was incredibly frustrating. We were starting from square one. I was basically relying on I made a whole Facebook post about this, but I was basically relying on our director, Jamie Mortellaro, to guide me into where Nintendo wanted him. And it was so stressful that I cried on the phone to my mentor during our break on the first session, because I wasn't sure anymore if I was going to be the best fit. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to really hone in, if I wasn't locking myself into what my vision for Revali's voice was, if I was going to be able to give him the best performance that he deserved. And obviously it worked out. You know, I put my faith in my director that he wanted only the best out of me and that he was going to help me get there. I put faith in myself that I was capable of performing it, and we got there. But the fact was that stress, that uncertainty was very important to feel, because it was important for my growth as an actor, but it was so aggravatingly stressful. And I hope I never have to feel that way again. I'm glad it happened with Revali, because I refused to give up on a character I cared for so much, but God, did it suck to go through.
Yeah. I definitely feel like it was a little bit stressful. You're given a very short amount of time to perform and get the backstory, and you're not given the whole backstory either. Yeah. For me, Mipha was really, she lives in a different place in my voice. So making sure to keep that soft spoken, little bit higher pitched vocal quality while still matching the lip flaps and trying to deliver a solid emotional performance was a challenge for sure.
God, yes. And you guys, it was probably easier for Revali because Revali's beak, he has a beak, so it's either open or it's closed. But you guys had like actual vowel sound stuff, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you know, it was just, you know, you tweak it, and you go in with a certain delivery or a certain cadence in your head. And, you know, Jamie and his infinite wisdom and experience and all that would, you know, sort of coaches you and kind of gets you where it needs to be. You know, sometimes, you know, you kind of get down. It's like, oh, man, maybe the timing isn't right. Or maybe, you know, just something with the cadence or the delivery or the emphasis just wasn't clicking. And, you know, he was always just kind of ahead of everything and on top of it. And, you know, the guys, we had some Nintendo guys there, and they were great. And so it just morphed into what the final product was. You know, please know that, you know, from what I did with my audition to the callback to day one, you know, it was a continuous just learning and growing process of just sort of getting down the character and refining it.
And it wasn't just playing ball with ourselves or Nintendo's reps. It was playing ball with like the Japanese executives who, you know, wanted to make sure a certain theme was kept to, with the director himself who maybe had a certain way that he likes the lines to be read. We were playing and catering to at least 3 different parties, all involved in this game in different respects. And you had to come up with a singular performance that met everyone's needs at the same time and still kept to the timestamps and the restrictions that we were given.
Bloody hell.
Which to its credit,
that's a lot.
Yeah, that's actually proof of how good a director Jamie was. And as you know, he also was the voice of Sidon in the game, of the Fish Prince. And Sidon's voice is just Jamie being Jamie. Like, every ounce of how supportive and enthusiastic and optimistic Sidon is in the game, that's just Jamie. It's just him, because he was so supportive of everyone else on the cast. And so I can't begin to emphasize what a perfect fit for that character he was.
Oh my god. It sounds like quite a journey, is from what I'm hearing from everyone. So, again, neatly it puts me to my next question. What were you, because you've already answered the transition between DLC expansions. What were your favorite lines in the game?
Favorite lines in the game?
Yeah, which is your favorite line read or your personal attachment? If you do, you do not. If you don't, that's completely fine. But was there any lines in while performing your characters, whether it's Mipha, Daruk, or Revali, what seems to be your favorite?
My favorite just as an actor, as the performer, has to be when Revali says it's just asinine, because that's the first time I've ever heard the word asinine used in a game. Like, I can't honestly recall the last time I remember anyone saying the word asinine as part of a voiceover. But my favorite, based on audience response, is his quote that he says whenever his ability is ready. Revali's Gale is now ready, just because of how much it's messed with people, where they've been climbing a hill and they overestimated their amount of stamina and they fall off, and as they're falling to their death, Revali's Gale is now ready. Thanks, Revali, for absolutely nothing. Or when they're like super focused on a dungeon or something like that, and then his voice pops out of nowhere and it scares the crap out of them.
Yeah, it's kind of that way with
hilarious.
Daruks Protection as well, where that pops up and it scares the crap out of people.
I like when Mipha, because she's so sweet and soft-spoken, she says, "We'll annihilate Ganon together." I don't know. I like.
Yeah, I forgot about that line. I forgot about that line so much. Sorry, no. Continue. I do apologize. I didn't mean to break there.
No worries.
For me, I would say it was probably Daruk's line was, "Great job, little guy." I could do those laughs all day. Just the I love his laugh. Just this big, bolsterous, what I love and identify with the character so much is that he's sort of this gentle giant. And if you meet me in real life, that's kind of who I am. I mean, I'm, you want to talk about perfect casting. I think there's a little bit of each and every one of us in our character. It wasn't that much of a stretch, I don't think. I mean, I think there are a lot of qualities that I share with Daruk. I don't know how you guys feel.
No, I agree. I mean, there's not a lot I share with Revali, but at the end of the day, I can rest easy knowing that we both have a giant mech bird in the air waiting for us to board it on a whim. I mean, his probably was a lot easier to build than mine, but you know, that's semantics.
Go on if you want to say, Amelia.
Oh, I definitely think I share that quiet strength that Mipha has. Maybe soft-spoken at first, but definitely have a little bit of a force underneath.
To be honest, with my time with you guys, the very short time with you guys, I can see it. Like, you can see where the characters kind of come in. I'm hoping that the audience understands, like, can hear it as well. I don't know. Just as a side note, I feel like Daruk's like the best wingman. He's the one who will always be like, "No, go do it. You're fine." And Revali's going to be and I can hear that from Joe. And Sean is the very gung ho. No, we gotta do this. You know, only I with my flamboyance can do this. I can hear that with Sean, and he would make a great rival. And Amelia, I can hear that sweet innocence to me. I can hear all of that. It's there. I remember meeting me for the first time, and I was just like, I gotta protect this person at all costs. With that being said, speaking of abilities and stuff, Super Smash Brothers got announced recently.
Yeah.
Would you like to see your characters up here?
Well, I would, but my wallet would not, because I got so hype about it that I said, since I'm almost positive that's Breath of the Wild link in the trailer that showed during the Direct, and I said on Twitter, you can quote me, I said, if Revali shows up either as an assist trophy or a playable character, which isn't likely, but if he does, I'm going to raffle off 20 copies of Smash for Switch. And if Revali is a playable character, I'm also going to raffle off a Nintendo Switch. So, I'm hoping, but also not hoping.
Yeah, I mean, it would be insanely cool to be attached to, you know, not just The Legend of Zelda, but also to the Smash Brothers franchise as well. And it just sort of adds to all of it. You know, I don't know how likely they are to add these characters or, you know, whatever, you know, where it would go from there. But I mean, as a gamer myself, I'm loving that they're doing another Smash Brothers game. I'm loving that it looks like they have Breath of the Wild link in there. So I know that this franchise will be well represented.
That's for sure. Yep.
Amelia?
Well, this is the first time I'm hearing about it, but I would be thrilled to be a part of something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So that covers my questions. Now we can get into the fan questions, and we'll go through as many as we can, as we have time for. But there aren't too many. So the first question is from Neve. Who is your favorite character and why? To be fair, they kind of left it a little vague. We'll say Legend of Zelda for the time being. So if you have any particular interactions with other characters, for example, whilst you were doing your dubbing, there was a line that you heard from another character. What was your favorite one?
And this is specifically in regards to Breath of the Wild, or?
For this first, I'll put it in two parts. First part is Breath of the Wild, if you wish to answer, and second part would be just open to anything.
My favorite character in Breath of the Wild is Hearth, because I don't think anyone remembers he exists, and I would love to get like a comic series about precious emo burb growing up during his teenage years. In general, favorite character definitely has to be Lan and Mega Man.exe from the Battle Network series. Just the didactic between, or the collaboration between them, even before you know the twist about who Mega Man EXE is great. The series itself was great, and it was just one of the coolest modern iterations of a character I already cherish. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me. Like, he played such a big part of my childhood.
Amelia?
You know, I think Patricia did an amazing job as Zelda. I think that her voice was perfect for that character. She showed so much of a range and emotion and put so much work into it. I would say Zelda is my favorite character.
And I think, Joe, did you answer?
No, I gotta say, yeah, I gotta back you up on this one, Amelia. I love Patricia. Zelda. I mean, it's just, I love what they did with her character this go around in the video game. I love her performance, and when I was recording, they would play little, like there would be some interactions between my character and hers, or you'd see little clips, little snippets, and all that. And I was just so fascinated by what she did in her performance. And so it was great finally getting a chance to meet her. I think I met her after one of my sessions, and I was going out and she was kind of coming in, and I just got a chance to talk with her. And, I think she's, the bee's knees, man. As far as favorite characters go, I mean, if we're kind of going outside the realm of, Breath of the Wild and video games and all, all that, I'm a big Spider-Man fan. I've always loved this character. My father, growing up, read some of the original comic books in the 60s, and my grandmother, just as fate would have it, threw them all out. So, there goes my college education right there. But my father did a lot of business trips when I was growing up as a child, and he would always stop off at the airport and bring me back comic books. And needless to say, my father did a lot of traveling, but whenever he would, do his business trips, he would always bring me back Spider-Man comic books. So that's just kind of a general memory that I always have. And, if you know the character very well and you read the character, Peter Parker is the type of character that can go out and save the city as Spider-Man, but has a hard time finding a date for the prom. And there's something for me that I always identified with. And so, that's just something that I'm happy to just kind of continue on from my father's adolescence, I guess.
So the next question here. Actually, we'll go with this one. Richard Brown asks, what is your favorite part of Zelda that you weren't directly involved with? So this could include favorite memory or the experiences that you've had since the game has been released.
When I was very young, and I played, the very first Zelda game I played or remember playing was Link's Awakening for the Game Boy Color, or Game Boy. And there was a single room in a certain dungeon where the only way to get the item you need, which is necessary to complete the dungeon, is you have to defeat the 3 enemies in the room in a very specific order. And young me, for the life of himself, could not figure out what the gimmick of the room was. And at the time that I was struggling with it, our family was at an art van furniture store. And so, with no shame, with no fear, I immediately went up to the first person that I could find who looked like they were a smart adult, which at that age just meant an adult, and asked for help. And it happened to be the general manager of the Art Van Furniture Store. Now, he obviously knew nothing about the game, but he wanted to help this young child who was so eager about just trying to get another human being to assist him. So he called his daughter, who was out of state at college at the time, to see if she knew anything about this game and could help me out. She didn't, but it's the fact that he went... It's the fact that he went that far to try and help me out on this game that I really, really was enjoying and didn't want to get frustrated at. I cherish that. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, guy at the furniture store.
Thank you, Art Van General Manager of Saginaw, Michigan. You will always be in my heart.
Wow, that's amazing. I do apologize. I didn't mean to think that. Amelia, what's your favorite memory of Zelda to date?
Well, my favorite memory was actually the DLC cutscene where Sidon and Mipha swim up the waterfall. I just loved I loved seeing Sidon smile at the end of it with his big shark teeth. I thought that was really cute. But their interaction and their relationship I really loved about Zelda, for sure.
I don't know if I can necessarily just boil it down to just one memory. There's a couple of really good memories. I remember watching, I think there was like a Legend of Zelda cartoon.
Yes, there was.
Growing up kind of in the late 80s, early 90s, around that era. And I remember watching some episodes of that, and I think there was even like a sort of a crossover with like the Super Mario Brothers series that was going on at the time. I don't really remember, but I obviously I'm still holding on to it, 30 some odd years later. So there's that. Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker are two games that kind of just sit in my memory. Growing up in my household, my older brother, for the longest time would always kind of hog the gaming system. So I never really got a chance to really enjoy playing video games as much as I would have liked, up until he grew up and moved out of the house. And so, having the N64 all to myself, Ocarina of Time was kind of the game that I was able to play all to myself. I started it, beat it, all on my own, which, I mean, big boy, right? We're and the same thing with Wind Waker, just growing and getting to experience it and discover, the entire map and everything all on your own. It was great to experience it.
That is true. Everyone was like one of their first Zeldas. Mine was Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
I got to play that on the 3DS. I was actually very late to the party.
Oh.
But I never had a 64 younger. I had a different console at the time. But that was the first one I played. And that's when the first time I even heard about an ocarina. So that's my memory. Imran Nala asks, if there was one thing you guys could change about your characters, or something you would add to your characters, what would it be? Now, obviously it's a Nintendo character. There wasn't much that it could change personally, but let's put it this way: if there was a personal item you could add to the character that effectively represents you, what would you give Revali, Daruk, or Amelia? Mipha.
Like a physical item, like a weapon or equipment, or
it could be that, or it could be something that is personal to you. So, for example, I normally hang out with a red coat. So, if I ever had a character that I could voice, I would give my character a red coat.
I wish that that's interesting. I remember when the beta artwork of the characters were shown, especially Revali's original appearance as kind of more of like a D&D-esque rogue character with this really nice forest-themed cape. And I feel like, at least in terms of Revali's training when he was first starting out, if they had still included that cape and it was just kind of like a way that he kept himself secretive and people didn't know where he was going, or they just saw a different person heading to the mountains until he was ready to show himself off. I think an homage to that original beta design via the cape or the hat would have been really neat. I'm not mad that they didn't include it, but if they had, it would have been really cool.
Amelia?
That's kind of a hard question. I think the character was designed really beautifully. I love her weapon of choice and the way that she's dressed. I mean, maybe if I had some input on the design, I might give her something that shows that she's a princess, like a crown or
that's
some kind of symbol that she's, royalty.
Joe?
Oh man, that's tough. I don't know. Maybe just something for a cold weather option. I mean, Death Mountain's a pretty warm place, so I know he's pretty comfy with what he's got. But if he ever goes outside, if it's raining or snowing, just get him a fur coat or something like that. Something to, because Daruk's wearing next to nothing. I mean, I love the chains, love the chains. Wouldn't really change that, but like maybe just a jacket or a fur coat or something, keep him a little bit more warm.
Joe, have you seen that video, the animation video of like how to get the heat armor in Daruk's place? And it's just 30 minutes of Link screaming and eating food to recover his hearts while running through the area and constantly taking damage from the heat index.
That's awesome.
Oh my god, if I find it during the interview or after the interview, I'll send it to you. It's incredible.
The thing is, that's what I actually did. So, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Coming up to the last two questions. Nai Nakai says, did you do more takes of voice clips for the champion's powers than you did for any other part, as they're repeated so often during the game?
Did we repeat that question for me?
Did you do more takes of the voice clips for the champion's powers than you did for any other part or any other line in the game? Was that how many? Because that's the one line that is repeated the most in the game. So Revali's
No.
Gale is ready.
No,
Daruk-
in comparison, that was really quick because since there's not a specific cutscene tied to that line, and it can happen at any point of the game, that fell into the realm of what most video games do is you have a specific timestamp or length that it can be that you have to match, but otherwise you don't have to worry about anything in terms of timing of character lips or timing of a scene. So as long as we were within the time frame, it was mostly good to go. I would say that was one of it fell into the same realm as like sound effects or whenever we had to do the emotional reactions like just like the small responses like that. It was super quick. We were probably done with those lines in less than 2 minutes.
Amelia, Joe?
Yeah,
Yes, I agree.
I remember. Well, go ahead, Amelia.
No, I agree completely. You know, as long as you're not matching the lip flaps, those takes actually go quite a lot quicker because you don't have to match it straight to their lips. So, yes, it didn't take more time.
Yeah, just I definitely want to echo their sentiment. Yeah, it didn't take too long. I would say the stuff that we didn't have to match to the lip flap. We definitely had a little bit more free range as far as what we can do because we weren't shackled down to like the timing or the lip flaps or anything like that. So I think, you know, some of those things that, you know, you're seeing that, you know, might not necessarily be in a cutscene or anything like that. You know, there's a little bit more just wiggle room as far as what we can do to express ourselves with our characters.
All right. And so that's all the fan questions because you've kind of answered all the other ones anyway. In the other forms. So if you do, just for those who are listening, if you do want to ask questions later on, do put them in the comments below. And alternatively, when we do other Q&As with other voice actors or other developers, please don't hesitate to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for that. But as a final question, just to give people an opportunity to follow in your footsteps, as now you may be one of those people that people aspire to be like. What is the most important thing when it comes to voice acting to you?
Research. I know that practice is super important, but I think of it in terms of tennis. If you practice the wrong swing 200 times, you don't get better at doing the swing. You just get really good at doing the swing the wrong way. And then it becomes really hard to change that. So perhaps as important as practicing is actually educating yourself. There are more materials online than ever. There's D. Bradley Baker's website, iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. There's the Voice Acting Club forums where many of my peers have dedicated time to writing guides that amateurs or even professionals can follow or understand more about the industry. There's Crispin Freeman's podcast, Voice Acting Mastery. Long story short, there is no excuse for you to say, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know where to begin. If you're not sure, there's resources online that you can look up and read and study and follow along with and then practice. So really the only limitation is the one that you put on yourself, and you need to put in the time and the energy and the effort in order to grow. You have to. If you're not willing to do the studying, you're not going to be able to perform well when the quote unquote test comes.
I really think for me the most important thing has been professionalism, and the reason I say that is because the relationships that you build with the people that can offer you opportunity are extremely important, and how you conduct yourself in the booth, along with how you conduct yourself to those people that can offer you those opportunities, really determines where you're going to go in this industry. It's very important to always be on time, to do your best, to work hard and be persistent. But being professional is I think I hold the highest above all others.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with, you know, what both of you just said. And I mean, that's, you know, those are two great sort of elements to endorse. For me, you just got to have that acting background. And I know, Sean, you had mentioned, you know, there's the forums, there's the websites, there's, you know, all those resources and things like that. But at the end of the day, you got to have that experience. You got to have that time under your belt. So go out, do some theater, take an acting class, really hone in on your craft. If you can do theater, you can do voice acting, you can do on camera. That's sort of, again, I'm a theater guy, so I'm going to kind of, scream it loud and proud. But if you can do that and kind of get out of that comfort zone, then it sort of feeds into doing voiceover. A lot of other people say doing improv, which I think also helps as well. Stand up, any one of those things, but just kind of get out of that comfort zone, get out of your bubble, and just really, be comfortable in that sort of arena, because by the time you get in front of a mic, it'll be just that much easier. As weird as it sounds, it takes a lot of work and effort to sound natural, like you're saying something kind of for the first time. So, just really kind of discover that.
Yeah, and being flexible, I think, is really important too. Like having all those tools in your back pocket is great, and being really talented is that's important, I guess, having talent, but being able to be flexible in the room and to go with the flow and to take the challenges as they come with a positive attitude is really important.
Yeah, being able to take direction very well, I think helps. But I agree. There's just sort of this realization that you need to continue learning, even once you reach a certain level or you start booking or have that little bit of success. You have to continue to want to learn. I'm sort of at this point in my life where I realize I know enough to know that I don't know it all. And so just continue to search for that knowledge and that experience.
Case in point, I imagine a lot of people, especially the UK players of your club, think a great deal of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But in comparison or in consideration of how it relates to our auditions or future auditions or our careers, sure, it may be a sign that we can be trusted with a big production, but just because I voiced Revali or Teba or Deku Tree does pretty much nothing to really improve my chances of booking work in the future. Mainly because most clients don't go into projects saying, we want the same voice that was used for Revali to be used for this character. It's a perfect fit. Everyone wants their project to stand out, to be unique, for their characters to have their own distinct tonality. And so, every time I audition for a project, it doesn't really matter what I've done in the past. The client is asking, what can you do to solve my voiceover quote problem now? What can you bring for this character, for this situation, for this project? You're basically proving yourself over and over and over and over again. And that's not something that you're going to be able to solve just by having a huge portfolio. The portfolio helps by giving you experience with character archetypes or character, ages or dispositions or personalities. The experience comes from, hey, I've seen this before. I've seen this type of character before. How can I take that type and add in what's unique to this specific character to come up with a voice that fits them specifically? That's where the learning process comes in.
For sure, and also to understand that all of that can be changed. It's a collaboration, between what the client wants, what the director wants, and what you're presenting as the character, and it might not necessarily fit what they want, and you have to be able to be willing to change that on a moment's notice in the booth.
Yeah, one of the other things I think that's also really important is you need to have a really good support system. In this business, and I'm sure, Amelia and Sean, you can kind of back me up on this. You definitely strike out more than you hit home runs, I would say. It's just you can record so many auditions, and you're lucky if you hear back from one of them. And so, when you do hear from it, it's great. You got a job, and that's great. You do it. But you can't get too attached to every single audition that comes your way, just because you go crazy. I mean, just the numbers. It's a numbers game, and there's just so many times where you're just not gonna get that call back, and that's not a reflection on you. It's just you're competing against some of the best in the business. And so you just kind of have to be able to be okay with that and accept it. And so that's why I think having that great support system that kind of keeps you in a nice place emotionally and mentally, to do this, because, you do it and you have to go back and do it again the next day and audition again and again and again. And you have to do it with your best foot forward and put a smile on your face. And
there are as many terrible days as there. Is it okay if I jump in?
Yeah,
Joe?
go for it. Yeah.
There are as many terrible days as there are payoffs. Just this week on Thursday, I had a god-awful day. Like, a client booked me for a job, but because of a session that I had, I wasn't going to be able to do the same-day turnaround they needed, so I lost the job, and it was for a couple $100s, so it was not small change. The session itself, went decently, but it was really stressful on my throat. Something else happened that following day. Like, it was just in general. Like, I got a message from my agency saying that a commercial that I had done had been released, or not released into the public, but released in terms of it's not going to air because the client never actually paid. So I did that work and I never saw a dime out of it. And that was just really, really frustrating. But then the following day, I had to go right back. I had to stay committed. I had to do these auditions that went out. I actually felt really good about the auditions that I did. I had a workshop that evening that went perfectly. It went phenomenally well. And it actually led the following day to, or I should say this was Wednesday and Thursday leading into Friday. The following day, I got an audition from my agency that I'm positive was a specific request audition from the same person that I had performed for at that workshop the previous evening. So if I had allowed the depression or the negative feelings of the previous day to linger, to continue to affect me going into the next day, probably none of that good stuff would have happened. I am positive what contributed to me finding that success again was refusing to let the bad times keep me from staying focused and prevent me from having faith in myself that I am good enough to do this when it counts.
Yeah, you just have
it's
to...
not the...
Oh, go ahead, Amelia.
Sorry. Oh, I'm just gonna layer on to that it's it's acting. It's not the type of job where you're slowly climbing the ladder to the top. You're gonna have hills and you're gonna have valleys. You're gonna be up one day, you're gonna be down another. And you have to just roll with it.
Every time you finally reach the top of that mountain above the clouds, you look to your left and you realize it was just a side piece of a much bigger mountain, and now you've got more to climb. And it just happens over and over and over and over again.
No.
Well, and I think what Amelia was trying to say is you do it because you love it. You do it because you want to.
Yep.
You want to do it. You're not necessarily doing it for any sort of accolades or recognition or any sort of dollar amount or anything like that. But you do it out of genuine love. And just kind of more to my point, you have to be okay facing that constant rejection. I know you guys are going to be in the UK, so I hate to say it, but I'm going to use a sort of a baseball analogy. Where, in the game of baseball, if you bat 300, if you hit the ball 3 out of 10 times, that's still a really good average. So I feel like there's some of that in voiceover where, you just have to persist and you have to stick it out because the rewards are there.
All right. I think, wow, that was a lot of advice there. That is a lot of advice that I was not expecting. I really appreciate that you went into detail as much as you have. With that being said, where can, I think we're coming up to time now. So I do apologize for viewers and to my guests. I know there's more that you could talk about today. With that being said, if they have more questions, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, on Tumblr, at Sonic Mega. It's like Sonic and Mega Man, just without the man, because I'm the man. So, that was funny. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that connotation. So yeah, at Sonic Mega on Tumblr or Twitter, or Sean Chiplock on Facebook. Definitely Twitter is the best place, though, because that's where all of my announcements go first. That's where all my raffles are held. That's where all my my terrible meme posting goes. If you want all of me, that's where you go. Go to Twitter.
Amelia?
If you want to contact me directly, you can go to my website, ameliagotham.com. There's a contact form there. I'm also on Twitter, but I don't think I've checked it in a year. But I think, through my website, that's the best way to contact me.
Of voiceover website, joehernandezvo.com. Same handle on Twitter, at joehernandezvo. I'm on Instagram, although I don't really use Instagram all that much. So, yeah, your best bet is probably on Twitter.
Once again, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege, and I've learned a lot from you today.
Yeah.
Thank you
very
so
much
much.
for having us.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for sparing the time.
No problem. And if you are interested in more QAs, or if you want to see more of it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. If you want to have questions, if you want to ask questions for VOs, do check out our Facebook. That's mainly where I will post stuff. If you want to find Nintendo groups near you, go to nintendoplayers.co.uk. Sorry, .uk. You'll be able to use that to find local groups near you in the UK. And alternatively, we have our Twitter, our Facebook, and our Instagram. Thank you very much for joining me, Sean, Joe, and Amelia. And hope to hear from you guys next time. Hopefully, we'll have these guys on again if you want that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be cool. It would be really cool if we... I don't know. Maybe we play a game sometime.
I'll be happy. I
anytime.
can't wait to talk to you again once they announce the champions for Smash. Wink, wink, Nintendo.
Yes,
Yeah,
for
let's get
sure.
that done, please. I'm in agreement. All right, again. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. You can find me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and we do live stream a lot on Twitch. It would be super helpful if you do share the video. And as always, and remember, I hope you guys have a very wonderful and happy Faz Day. See you next video, everyone.